So Disney recently announced that they plan on making 5 more Planet of the Apes movies to complete a 9-film saga that began with 2011's Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Is this a good idea? As someone who finds these movies, especially the recent trilogy, sorely underrated, I think it is. Planet of the Apes is kind of a special franchise because it doesn't seem to fall victim to a lot of the pitfalls that cause other movie franchises to feel stale or spread thin. After the satisfying conclusion of the last Apes trilogy with War for the Planet of the Apes, you'd expect the newly released Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes to be some kind of rehash or worse, a disposable story. I definitely felt the latter about Toy Story 4, and God knows what Toy Story 5 is going to be like. But luckily, Kingdom crushes those worries, as I think it still manages to be a good film while also building upon the saga in a meaningful way. Taking place generations after the last film, it doesn't rely heavily on characters and story beats in the previous trilogy, but still makes mention of them so that viewers still understand how those events influence what's going on in the current story. It's a great way of avoiding what Marvel had problems with, which was requiring people to be caught up with so many past movies and characters to understand the current ones. I also love how the world of these movies continues to evolve. It keeps all the films feeling distinct, almost as if we're entering a new world with each sequel. The series began with a regular modern world, then went into a more post-apocalyptic one, to now being almost devoid of all man-made structures. And if you go even further into the future to when the original Planet of the Apes movie took place, the world looked so different that even the astronauts couldn't tell where they were. Kingdom also introduces a slew of new characters that will presumably be leading us through the next few films. Here, Noah is the main ape that is taking over the main character role of Caesar, and while he hasn't reached Caesar's legend status yet, I was so happy to see that he was fundamentally different. He doesn't start out as a leader, and physically he can't even fight as well as Caesar, relying more on his wits to best his foes. Noah's ability to communicate with eagles was also a cool new idea that we haven't seen apes do before. My biggest issue with this movie though, that I'm afraid will lead into other sequels, is that I do think it can be argued as a little bit of a setup movie. While Kingdom wraps up its main quest, there's still a lot left open by the end of it. In the end, we find out that there's still a bunch of intelligent humans that are alive, and we don't exactly know what they're planning to do to rebel against the apes. All we know is that they're contacting another group of humans stationed where Taylor from the original movie was from. There's also a big tease to the introduction of astronauts from our modern time coming back to Earth. This was set up all the way back in 2011's Rise of the Planet of the Apes and mirrors a lot of the events from the original series. If we're being optimistic, the next movie will answer all these questions in a much more fast-paced and less expositional way and be a more thrilling movie because of it, like how Dawn was to Rise. I'd even be interested to see the saga lead up to a remake of the original 1968 version. There are also a few seemingly dead characters that a lot of fans like myself enjoyed, like Rocca and Proximus Caesar, that you'd expect to have more screen time. But since we didn't see their bodies, I'm assuming that means they may return in other sequels. Even Noah, the main ape, felt a little bit sidelined at times by the human protagonist May. The movie sometimes felt like it was trying to balance both of them as co-leads, when I feel like we should have gotten more time with Noah and his 2 friends. I mean, these movies are all from the perspective of the apes usually. In the previous films, there were always human protagonists, but Caesar always got front stage. So again, I'm hoping that this is remedied in the next film, now that May has already been set up and has seemingly fulfilled her main mission. I don't want this to become a Transformers or Godzilla x Kong situation, where the humans are always around because the writers don't trust that we can just watch CGI characters for 3 hours. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Even though I liked it, I still would rank it below all the other Apes movies in the reboot series, but I'm optimistic we'll get another masterpiece soon in this next slate of Apes movies.